Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is our new experiment, a Conquest video where we cover these topics. Now, the first video, mixed results. We're going to keep doing this for the rest of the week. Let me know in the comments if this is something you want to continue seeing, and then it'll come back for Conquest 16. And I do think that maybe Conquest 14, this would have been more helpful because doing the feats was a little bit harder. This is a little bit more energy intensive because it's harder to be as efficient, but it's not actually difficult feats in and of themselves. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. I do want to cover the inventory of equipped discs. This is where we ended up at the end of the day in Sector 2, where we do have an improving overall quality. The fortified is from yesterday with that ridiculous day we had of the ever-increasing fortifieds that I kept grabbing over some other discs that I probably would have enjoyed. Amplify Agony is a great one. We don't need to go into it. That one's we're familiar with. And we have Solid Intel, Savior, to pair with the Zealous Ambition that we do want to replace, but because it's gray, but I kind of like it over my other options. With our first set of choices, the last note is in yesterday's video. We got Blindside, Amplify, Agony, and then Leader's Resolve, Unstable Decelerator, and another Blindside. Now for me, I really like both the Blindside and Amplify Agony. I want to get both eventually. We skipped a Blindside yesterday, but with the current set of feats and squads that we are using in Sector 2, I'm giving the slight edge to Amplify Agony because that's going to work with the potency down, especially some of the squads that we want to utilize to implement that debuff, like a Master Qui-Gon squad, or with the Rebel Fighters, they're going to be inflicting a lot of debuffs, and with the Night Sisters. The Blindside, that's nearly as good. I love that disc, especially with a lot of the assisting squads that we're going to be utilizing, like those Cadme Master Qui-Gon squads. That's going to really boost in quality from having a disc like Blindside. But I feel like I am more likely to regret skipping the Amplify Agony than I will the Blindside. I just feel like Amplify Agony doesn't show up as much as the Blindside does, at least in previous conquests. After the mini boss with our triple choice, these are always a bad set, but we have Gray Amplify, Gray Swiftness, a stacking offense that I like. There was also a thermal exhaust is probably the best one in general. Now that green thermal exhaust though, I'm going to end up skipping because that is only good when paired with very specific discs and discs that we've had before, and I'm not really interested in building out a set that is going to boost the thermal exhaust. So that one I'm comfortable skipping. And even though there's no great choice here, what I'm eventually just going to decide on is we're going to take that Zealous Ambition. It's going to boost the squads that we're utilizing, and I'll take it for now. There's no good choices here. Here's where we get that Blue Savior. I like that disc particularly. I think I said up top that I like it with some of these 3-star characters that we're using, and the choices there weren't very good. That was an easy option. I'm going to just swap out that Unstable Decelerator because that's nice. It's a blue, but it doesn't really matter. It's not pairing particularly well with some of the sets that we're building or that I would like to build. With the boss node, a couple volatile accelerators and a certain defeat. Volatile would pair nicely with that thermal, not the set I'm building. So I'm going to go with this certain defeat. I think it's an interesting disc. That disc, it's like some of those Datacrons like the Padme Cron right now. And I think later in Conquest it's going to be useful. Not so much right now. So I'm not going to add it to the equipped data discs in these early sectors that are pretty easy, but it probably will be utilized in some of these later sectors. Into Sector 3, we got some junk. Caustic, Fortified, Zealous. Nothing I really like, so we're just grabbing a Zealous. With the Sector 2 feats, we have 4 more attempts on Night Sisters. During the initial playthrough, there was a few more potency down that was needed and another Rebel Fighter attack that was needed. We got really close to being done with all of those in the first attempt, and in the next couple months, I think I could do it, but we ended up completing those feats when we did the second attempt on those boss nodes in order to get the other feat. Now the Night Sisters, I did burn some energy trying to force it with the Night Sisters as the stamina got lower, but we used a small pool of squads to accomplish most of these feats. Primarily I used Leia for the potency down and the Rebel Fighters, but with Leia, she doesn't do a great job of applying potency down because with her it is limited who gets gets it. It's with the ability Tactical Offensive, and it's only applying to healer and support enemies. So it really depends on the squad. Sometimes you only get one, sometimes you get 3 or 4. It depends. We leaned on Zerg, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon here for the Imperial Trooper defeats. That one's very straightforward, no overlap with Potency down. But by the time we hit the final boss, I did not use this squad. I was originally thinking I would, but they were low on stamina. I didn't even want to attempt burning the inner energy, and that actually worked out well. We'll talk about that in the boss section of the video. Night Sisters are Night Sisters. You can see I only have 2 of them at relics. I like to keep them at gear 11 with Telzine and Zombie. This squad is better the weaker they are, because you can just die off and generate stacking health and offense. So this is how I like to have mine. And then on a couple nodes, I threw in Cadme squad. I ended up taking out Luminara and Shakti. Luminara was in there for Sector 1 because she added the evasion up. She didn't really contribute much in Sector 2, and what I actually realized from playing with them in Sector 1, what I really cared about was they needed more damage. So I brought in Jedi Knight Anakin, and that worked out well. And I also brought in Padme on some nodes too. I kept trying different variations, and the Anakin Padme version was the one I liked the most. We'll show some footage of that later in the video if you want to use the timestamps. And then once or twice I used the JML squad. I swapped out some of the characters depending on the node and where stamina was at, but that brought us some extra defeats on the global with Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. What I didn't use that I thought I would use was either of these teams. Well, Phoenix isn't Rebel Fighters, but this top one with Mon Mothma, I thought I was going to end up using. I didn't use it. Now we'll jump into the boss nodes. At the end of day 2, here's our progress on the global feats. Basically done with the challenge path defeats. Cal Kestis pretty much done. Rex, we are just under halfway. Again, I have not been prioritizing him. We've talked about this in the other videos. He's going to happen almost on his own, particularly in Sector 5 where we have to use Phoenix. So those are going to happen. Master Qui-Gon, Padawan Obi-Wan. We have 1 more battles with Cadme. We've just lost one or the other. So this one is taking a little bit longer, but should get easier as we get better data disks. Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. This is one we may approach differently in month 2, month 3 of this conquest, but we weren't prioritizing him in Sector 2 because he's not an Imperial trooper, but I probably should have or considered using a different trooper squad to save the stamina on him. Because we do get booming voice from this, so it's something I do kind of want to prioritize where we can. The Gungans I haven't touched, but that's partly because this is going to be a day 3 squad. In Sector 3, you need to do accuracy up, and the Gungans can do that fairly well. The other concern here is if I'm using Gungans, we're not 3-starring, which means we need to revisit those nodes. And Gungans are probably going to be a little bit better used as a Datacron node squad. And I hadn't noticed this until today. We have this Royalty Has Arrived feat, which gives us a title. I'm definitely going to be doing it. Just because it was so many words were here, I just assumed it was kind of like this feat or this feat and didn't realize this was a unique thing that we're getting this time. Interesting. With the nodes and the stars, I only dropped 2 of them here. This squad up against the Vader, this was me trying to push things with, I think, a Cadme squad. That or the Night Sisters. I don't remember exactly what I did there. And then on this other node, up against Night Sisters, this was another one where I was pushing, I think, the Rebel Fighters in this case when their stamina was getting low and somebody got knocked out before the end. Sector 2 bosses, the mid-boss, we're starting with the Sabine Wren feat. Now here, I'm going to swap out Bam, and I'm putting Sabine in the Bam slot. I think that's a mistake. I think I probably should have taken out armor. You can see stamina's a little bit lower on the characters, but that's not what happens here. We just get some bad luck. Maybe not even bad luck, but Kellen just rips out my Sabine. Now, when things like this happen to me, I don't retreat. I just roll with it and make progress on the node, because if you retreat, that's just basically wasting 20 energy. And even though I'm going to lose stamina, I'll just come back later and give this another shot. I'd rather make progress on the nodes. So that's the goal here. And you can see that had I had maybe relics on my Sabine, we would have done better. And we wouldn't have any trouble with this. Like light side Mandalorians, they are a strong squad for these purposes. Maybe with full stamina, I would have started off with better speed and been able to protect my Sabine. So we'll try it later with better discs. And we'd get these hits. And we're done. With the win a full squad with Galactic Republic surviving, you got JMK, this one's easy. I gave it a shot with Cadme without, where mine are with the lower stamina from playing with them today, they didn't have a shot. So I just used something overpowered. You could probably bring in a gas team though and crush it as well. This isn't particularly difficult. You'll just see these characters roll over it. Not wasting Cat's instant defeat. I want to use that on Anakin. I don't want to deal with Anakin's AoE getting triggered. Just saving everything for Cat to go. Even basic there. And from there we're basically done. Eliminate Barriss because she's going to make everybody a little bit more resilient and put more effort in. I want to eliminate that effort. And she goes down. You'll see everybody be a little bit easier without Barriss on the field. And then Kelleran and we're done. Sector 2 final boss. I did give it a shot with Gerrera. That was a fail. I mean, mine are very weak. So instead I switched to Inquisitors to deal with the Empire portion. Again, Zerg at this point was too weak. Actually, I don't even think Zerg counts as Empire. He's Remnant. Well, we bring Inquisitors for one big reason why Ninth Sister is in here is that potency down, because Ninth Sister has a potency down AoE. So with his presence, we very quickly wrap up that feat. And you can see, like, we were done with the sector at this point. This is a second attempt on boss nodes. And this team is just overpowered compared to this stuff. It's really surprising just how easy these feats are compared to last season. And even actually many of the recent seasons. This is... Even last season, I would say, was a fairly easy conquest. This is probably by far the easiest conquest, at least through 2 sectors. For Gerrera, there's an easy way to handle this, and that is with Leia. I just hit him behind Leia. Rebel Fighter Squad here. Or not completely, because I was done with the Rebel Fighter feat by this point, but you can see how, like, this node you can double up with Rebel Fighters and make progress, or that potency down with the Empire requirement. But this is OP, and we've got very depleted Leia at this point, Drogon at this point. R2's fresh though, because I hadn't been using him, because he's not a Rebel Fighter, and I was just pairing Leia with other Rebel Fighters to carry them. But this is an easy solution. I think next time we're going to change up the camera. I think we'll do full screen. I don't know what... Is that what I did last video? Yeah. You can see Saw's not at any risk of being taken out. This works well and is strong. For the gameplay section, we're going to do this differently today. I don't think we're going to spend as much time showing actual footage unless it's a particularly interesting match. I think I'll talk through some of the key nodes and how I approached it, and if there's anything specific that helped with feats. This first sector here with Night Sisters, this I just used Zerg, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. He was particularly useful here. Night Sisters are very good for those defeat feats because you can slow play it and make some progress. I think I'll show one of those, but not this one. Next up with the clones, this is where I brought in Night Sisters. When you need to win 10 battles, those I felt like prioritizing early because you don't know how often you're going to get favorable nodes. So Night Sisters came in here. This next node here with Night Sisters, this one I will show the footage on. Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, reduce stamina, and maybe we'll increase the size of this footage soon, but you'll see I'm ignoring DACA to play this because I want to just increase my amount of defeats. So we're hitting the staggers, taking my time. We pull Talzin off the board. Comes back. I'm just going to throw armor shreds onto DACA because DACA's health pool is stacking as we take everybody out. I want to counteract that with the armor shreds. So I think that's already 3 taken out. I throw a death mark onto Talzin because Talzin is annoying, and I just want to reduce the amount of Night Sisters who are on the board, because if you don't, if you aren't careful, they can overrun you in some of these. That's happened to me in previous conquests. So I've decided to just shrink how many we need to deal with, how many we need to risk coming back. So we're going to use death mark whenever it appears and just pull one down. Now we could have done a little bit more, like maybe I should have only taken down 2 and then did that, but you'll see the idea. So make sure protection's off everybody. I want characters stunned and under control, except for DACA. Take Talia out. Now Talia is probably someone who is worth staying on the board, and I really would have benefited more from death marking Ventress, but she was already gone. But I knew death mark was coming. I should have just done what I could to save it and take advantage of it later. But we got 2 minutes left. We only have 3 Night Sisters to deal with. There's no real risk of them starting to cheaply take out characters, maybe reviving themselves. We make a good amount of progress on the feat by playing this node like that. So how easy this sector is going to be in the coming months is going to depend really on the nodes that we get. Getting Night Sisters just was a big help. It was something that we could exploit, and it was something that we got twice going through this sector. But now that we're down to 50 seconds, now I'm ready to just take them out and be done with it. Plenty of nodes left on the board. No rush on these. Next up, we have Old Republic. I tried Night Sisters here. That didn't work out for me. That was one of the places where we burned some energy. This one I didn't want to mess around with. We just brought in my first set of Rebel fighters. So at these crossroads, I have Separatists down below. I have Bad Batch up above. But I decided to go with the Bad Batch. Almost went here, but I end up going with the Bad Batch because there's a little bit more flexibility in choices if I go north. But really, it's because in the upper territory, there's a Mon Mothma node. I won't show this footage, but I used troopers here to take down the Bad Batch. With Mon Mothma, I bring in the troopers pretty much for the last time so that I can work on their feet. Very annoyingly though, I get to 34 out of 35 after this, so I had to bring in troopers after just because I didn't count carefully enough. And we'll talk about this. At this node, we grab the Luthen shards, and I always grab the blue signal data because that stuff you just can't get enough of. It has a poor drop rate. Always grab it. And here's the progress on the feats. You can see we hit 34 out of 35 with Imperial troopers. Rebel fighters, we are basically halfway done with, a little bit more than halfway through the sector. Night Sisters a little bit behind. Night Sisters weren't going to happen. And then Potency down, you can see very little progress on Potency down. That's going to be my big focus on the second half. Part of the reasons why Night Sisters don't get a lot of development. Next node, though, is an easy one with Kenobi Lead Jedi. That did get Night Sistered. Next node was Vader. This was Night Sisters again. Followed by Vader again. But at this point, my Night Sisters were too depleted with stamina to beat this one. I gave it 2 shots just in case it was RNG, so burned some energy on it. And then I burned it down with Rebel fighters, partly because there's a 6th character here. so I could make a little bit more progress by bringing them in for the defeat. With the next node, we got Phoenix. I did make a lot of progress towards potency down by bringing in this Queen Amidala squad. I'm showing it though because this was a failed attempt. You see it timed out. I do have Luminara and Shakti in here from the preset, but what I really want to show you is attempt 2. Because I learned some things in that first attempt that I wanted to explore. We were just swapping out Shakti and bringing in Jedi Knight Anakin. I'm also changing who I target because the mass assist here, focusing that down on Ezra. And now you can see some of these abilities, getting a better feel for how and when I want to use them as well. Understanding which ones are the dispels. Going for that heal on Luminara right away to benefit Queen Amidala. It just gets her to the more stacks of Queen's Protection or whatever it's called more quickly. You can see Ezra's in the yellow. Ezra's really the big threat because you can see how he's just pounding through the decoy. But now Ezra's gone, and the rest of this is going to fall apart really quickly. And the whole time we're making some good progress on potency down. And this is with... there's only one relic character out here, and that is Jedi Knight Anakin. Everyone else is gear 11. Next node, we got troopers. This is rebel fighters, just because we're working towards a feat. And this is going to give the rebel fighters a nice opportunity to make up some ground on those defeats. And after that battle, I did a check-in with those feats. You can see now we're at 31 out of 35 with the rebel fighters. Still one short on the troopers. Potency down. We've got some progress at 37 out of 50, but feeling good with it. Rebel fighter, these Bad Batch characters. With these Inquisitors, I attempted the Queen Amidala up against them that I did in Sector 1, and it worked. Now, these characters are a little bit stronger, and it ended up not working at this point, especially with already 2 successful attempts with Cadme today. They were depleted on stamina, and they didn't have a chance, but we did make a lot of progress to potency down by doing that, even in the failed attempt, which is why we don't retreat. What I used to ultimately beat those Inquisitors was this squad here. This is a weird squad, but it's making progress towards the global feat with Cal Kestis. Kyle Katarn's a rebel fighter, so he's going to pair nicely with JML as another Jedi character, and then Piet as that trooper, because we got to get that one more trooper kill. And what ended up happening here was a little annoying because Katarn died. So he didn't complete the rebel fighter feat, because also I don't think I showed an update, but we were one defeat short with rebel fighters, so that's why he is in here, why I was going for it. Piet actually did accomplish his job and did take somebody out, so he did finish off that feat with this node. Night Sisters here, I did Night Sister Mirror. I think this was the last time I could use Night Sisters. And the Inquisitors here, I just used a full Jedi squad with the Kyle Katarn to finish off that rebel fighter feat. Going into the boss node, I was a few potency down away. I accomplished the potency down as we set up top when I was doing the second attempt on those nodes for the boss feats. So that's day 2 of this new experiment. We're going to keep rolling with it for the rest of the week. Don't really know how I feel about it yet. And the views are kind of there. Things have been a little slow, but they're building up. And I think maybe as we hit Sector 3, 4, and 5, where things get a little bit more difficult, this might turn into something more useful. So we'll see how it goes. But I do have a video here, the lowest viable teams for the Seer Junda, Cal Kestis, Baraka node. I've got 0 speed on my Seer Junda. I don't remod. And my approach is a little bit different from this. I think it's worth checking out. And I would appreciate if you guys just clicked on that video and just helped the algorithm find it. That is one of the best things you can do to help the channel, is just click on some of these things even if you don't watch them. I don't need you guys to watch them. Open up a tab, put it in the background, mute it. That's good enough. But thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.